All right. All right. So, hi, everybody. It's 6:01 and let's start the discussion. I mean, the discussion has been happening for a few minutes in a very casual way, but let's officially kick off. So welcome, everybody, to this panel discussion about workplace and mental health and why it is important. And the reason why we are hosting this session right now is wanting to align with the World Mental Health Day that happened a couple of days back. And also as an organization, Root Code, we really believe in the fact that people need to be happy and content to do productive work. And we kind of echo the sentiment that mental health is essential. And I personally know, as a CEO, I work regularly to make sure that I am emotionally healthy, and also I'm staying on top of my productivity level and calmness and everything. So I think it would be a very valuable session for everybody, and I'm very excited. Yeah. So for the panel discussion, we have some very interesting people today. I'm going to introduce them one by one, and the hosts, if you can highlight them, then people would know. All right, first we have Kaushali Amara Divakara. And Kaushali is a psychotherapist and an alternative creative therapist. And she works as a mental well-being advocate, and she usually inspires adolescents and young adults to maintain a healthy mind and also to cherish their life. And she's very passionate about bringing the best out of humans. And Kaushali is also a lecturer, and then she's currently reading for her doctorate in psychology as well. That is Kaushali. Then we have Chanel de Almeida. Chanel is a licensed clinical psychologist from the Sri Lanka Medical Council, and she has a specialization in cognitive behavioral therapy, and she generally does couple therapies, family therapies, and everything. And then she was educated from the USA, and she's also a member of the American Psychological Association, and also one of the board members of the American Alumni Organization of Sri Lanka as well. Interestingly, Chanel is also a corporate athlete trainer of the Human Performance Institute of Johnson & Johnson in the US. And she's currently the group wellness manager of Hema Holdings PLC. That is Chanel. And I have one of our very own Mangala. So Mangala Pereira is the Chief Operating Officer of Root Code. And before joining Root Code, he served as the Vice President Software Operations at IFS. And being a leader in the software industry for more than 25 years, he is kind of well known as a people person and kind of a culture advocate. And currently he guides the People and Culture Division at Root Code, among many other things, many other responsibilities that he has as a COO. So very, very happy to talk to these wonderful panelists, one from a therapy background, one a clinical psychologist, and then one from the industry who has been practicing and helping people and mentoring them, right? So I'm very excited, and I hope you are excited too. To start off, I'm going to start with my first question, and I've been very excited to ask this question from all of you. I'd like to hear all of your opinions on this topic. It's kind of generally a worldwide movement that people started accepting the importance of wellness, especially mental well-being at work. And we see organizations worldwide have been consistently investing lately into programs and into awareness sessions and even things like this, so that we can kind of, open up and talk about it and showcase the importance of well-being at work. Let me hear from you. What are your thoughts on the importance of mental well-being at work? Uh, can we start with Chanel? What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, so the importance stems from the fact that, I mean, we can all agree that physical well-being is important, right? We all agree that, you know, it's important to be absent from disease, right? If you talk about diet and exercise, people realize, okay, this is important. You know, you need to put good food in your body, and you need to work out your body, because it's essential for overall functioning, and your quality of life is increased. So the same applies to the mental aspect, right? Because you're not just your body, you are your mind as well. So this is where the mental aspect comes in. That's why we refer to it as holistic wellness at HEMAS, right? Because holistic wellness means mind, body, and soul, right? So you cannot have wellness as a whole without considering the mental aspect in addition to the physical aspect, right? And at work, most people spend most of their time doing tasks and trying to be productive. And most people will be working for most of their lives. So when you factor in the mathematics of that, if you're going to spend most of your life working and creating a purpose and doing a career, you would hope that not only your physical body is at its best, but your psychological well-being is doing well as well. So I think there is no way to separate the mental aspect. You need to pay attention. And this is why leaders such as yourself would need to consider that, because people are not just body, but mind as well. And you need to consider that if you want to have not just a productive workforce, but a society that is happy and functioning on a high level. So that's my idea.
Great. Great, very interesting thoughts. Let's hear from Kaushali. So Kaushali, what are your thoughts on the importance of mental well-being at work?
All right. So first, very good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for having me on board. And it's amazing to see, as Chanel was explaining, certain things which are very priceless, I would say very expensive, comes later in life. So I would also see mental well-being as something of that nature, right? So while thanking the team Root Code today to having me on board, if I'm to go back to the well-being, why well-being? I would say we have our guardian angels coming down to talk to us sometime later or sometime sooner at different places, different times, right? So this whole psyche, or rather mental well-being, the mental health factor is not visible to us, right? And we do have certain understandings that gives us certain signals. We call it gut feeling, or we'll call it intuition, whatever it is, to figure out, okay, it's time. We call it like nature calls in a different way, right? So this is exactly what I would see as mental well-being, because as Chanel said, it's a holistic picture of your body and your soul all together, with your emotions coming together. So what in the past, as I see, is that we have been focusing on our body structures and images because that is what we could see. So later in the world, we started, I think, especially very lately with all the conditions that are coming in, new challenges coming in, we kind of started looking at, okay, there's something that is important, but we still can't see within all of us. And that is our psyche, right? So I was just talking about the angel because psyche is an angel in terms of the Greek Latin versions that they have been, referring to. So that is where the start is, right? So if someone is thinking we have psychologists to psychiatrists to mental well-being, all about psych, what this is, it is starting from all about a beautiful angel named Psyche, right? So this is going back to the Greek, the whole mythical concepts of it, and then coming down to language. So this involves unseen happiness, joy, and acceptance. And for us to be full of ourselves, to be completely oneself, that internal happiness, acceptance, and joy is needed. And I believe that is very important right now, because we are seeing the other side of what can go wrong when it is not there. So in terms of well-being, it's perfect pitching. The whole picture is now getting completed, and I'm so excited about it. Earlier, it was not the case where we were saying, okay, there goes a mental. So now it's a trendy word, like, here we go, we are talking about, I think I have something to do with my psyche, something to do with my mental well-being. Amazing transformation. So that's what my perception about, and how I would say the importance has shifted to a next level.
Right. Great points, Kaushali. Thank you. Mangala, what do you think about the importance?
Yes, again, I think if I compile all what Chanel and Kaushali said, so I think I fully agree what they said, and if you compile all, basically this is what is most important thing for humans, right? End of the day, you might be pushing yourself in your career, you might be doing many different things, but end of the day, what we feel about ourselves and your self-esteem, to how you basically cope up with your day-to-day stress and the day-to-day work. So that feeling is what really matters for most humans. I use the word most humans because humans are in a big spectrum. There can be some exceptional people, but if you take most of us, right, so this is what we need end of the day. So why mental wellness is important at workplace is the first and foremost reason why it is important is it is the most important thing for our employees, right? So because the mental wellness is playing a major role in their life and in their success. So that is the first reason. And second reason is, if we as leaders, if you want to build a high performing organization and a successful organization, we all know that just having a bunch of talented individuals is not enough. So we need to have individuals, those who have right level of self-esteem, proud of what they do, and also those who bring a positive vibe around them, and those who can keep a positive atmosphere, positive work relationship within the organization. At the same time, those who can focus and do productive work and effective and efficient. You say all the words that we are looking for in talents, and for all these things you can't do without the right level of mental well-being. So from all lens, I mean, this is very, very important aspect that we need to take care of. Yeah.
Great points, Mangala. All of you kind of echoed a very similar sentiment that it's becoming quite normal and good to talk about mental well-being and mental health. It used to be a taboo, right? But still, sometimes people don't really speak up, especially they are the ones who are struggling through. I mean, I know there's a huge spectrum of stress and mental wellness where you stand exactly, but people generally have there's a bit of a stigma that I see. It varies depending on the setting, I think. I don't know. I looked up some statistics. I mean, the experts can vouch for it. I think generally men speak up less, apparently. I don't know whether that's true. And then the more you educated, like more professional you become, then there is a negative correlation sometimes as well. I mean, it depends on what you're educated on, though. That's kind of varying worldwide. So considering all of that, one thing though that's evident is that there is a stigma around speaking out. So I want to ask all of you, like, how can we break the stigma and the fear of speaking out about mental health? And where can we start? We don't need to break it in a day, but where can we start? To the experts. Kaushali?
All right. So let me answer this question in two different ways. What is normalcy? Is my first question. We are looking at, okay, we want to just normalize it. But what is my perception about normalcy and what is your perception about normalcy? So this is where I believe we need to start. Because being excellent or being good, or all these words that I'm telling, being nalam, being elakiri, whatever, these words, we are perceiving it in our own sense. And we create our own normalcy. And same way, we create our own stigma. Right? This is the amazing thing about brain, which AI cannot pick up yet. Right? They're going all around the neuronal pathways, all around everywhere inside this. Still, it's figuring out, okay, what is this neuroplasticity that is working, which is a beautiful thing about humans. So our stigma, our normalcy, or the perception that we give to our words is what is going to create the change. So in your, at root code, considering everyone's acceptance, everyone has a very nice platform where majority sees acceptance in the common understanding. So let's say if you have someone says, okay, acceptance is I'm coming in this Porsche today at this time. I want someone to park. I want someone to, open the door for me. That's a different level of acceptance. Whereas, okay, you will be just walking regardless of your designation, coming into the workplace. You say, hello, Machang, how is everything going on? That is also another level of acceptance. So we have given this weight to the words, and through the words, weight to the behaviors. Right? So stigma breaking starts from the perception and the weight we are going to give to these two words. What is our normalcy? What is our stigma? And the third part is we are seeing psychology and psyche and mental well-being about another 300 kilometers away from our body. Right? So now it's time to say, look, it lives right in front of this, right inside this. Right. So in front of is like when you have the vision coming into you, when you have the signals coming in and your beautiful brain starts reading it. So normalcy and stigma can be addressed with your input as well. So if you're coming, rather than just looking at psychology is far beyond, I have to go and find something for my mental well-being, look inside, have a chat with your own self. Hey, dude, what's going on in me right now today? Where do I stand in front of my perception about my words, about my creativity, about my statistics, about my different, ways of my life? This is, I believe, in my perception, this is where we start. Right? And I'm sure Chanel can talk about the whole, psychological and psychiatric aspect of it, explaining what happens inside when we start thinking like this, right? So the change, the stigma needs to be addressed within ourselves first. Doesn't really matter whether you're in the workplace, whether you're on top of a tree, whether you're inside house, wherever it is, doesn't really matter. But what matters is, where are you inside yourself? Which platform are you sitting in terms of acceptance, in terms of rejection, in terms of judgment, and in terms of letting go? So that's a good start in terms of psychotherapeutic side of it, I would say. Definitely not from the clinical side of it, but clinical guru is next to me. So she would be the one to give the clinical perspective. Over to you, Chanel.
Thank you, Kaushali. That was an excellent overview of, how we should approach this whole stigma breaking, and I think the younger generation especially is in a very complex place right now because for the first time ever, people have been born into the social media world, right? And that social media world is exactly what Kaushali was mentioning. What she's talking about is context, right? Context is everything, right? The individual is part of a context, but it takes individuals to make the context. So we need to really evaluate, as Kaushali says, what is your role in that? And yes, we have that beautiful brain of ours, right, which has already decided a lot of the script that we're working from. And if we really want to get technical, we need to talk about the fear response, right? Because the fear, according to most evolutionary psychologists and biological psychologists, we consider fear as the most primal human emotion. So if it's the most primal human emotion, that means that fear is what is going to be the strongest human emotion. So anyone who can make you scared of something basically holds the power over you. And this is true not only when it comes to individual relationships with each other, but larger cultural contexts as well, right? So if you take the South Asian context, for example, there's a reason why we have a stigma which is so prominent today. And that's because the larger context that Kaushal is talking about is inhibited by this state of fear. And people weaponize certain things like religion, race, for political gain. So they pitch us against each other, because that way, when we are afraid, neurologically speaking, what gets triggered? The fear response, fight or flight, right? And also, in addition, freeze. That is when we pretend to be, dead, and the predator just walks by us. So of course, these are all primal reactions to mountain lions and poisonous snakes and famine and rival tribes. We don't technically really have that in this context for ourselves, but the primal organism is the exact same. The brain is still the same Homo sapien brain we're working with, right? Which is tens of thousands of years old. So we still get triggered by the angry boss, or the toxic relationship, or the conniving friend, right? Fear, fear, fear. And then culturally, if we have certain associations when it comes to things like sexuality, for example, because that's a very controversial topic, no matter what context we're talking about. People use sexuality and are very afraid of it based on the context. If you study sexuality in the context of Nordic countries, for example, people are much less inhibited sexually, right? They're not as afraid. But in a context like Sri Lanka, there's a lot more taboo surrounding sexuality. This does not mean that people don't desire it to the same degree as, evident in certain Googling terms and so forth that we can research, right? So this fear society that we have built over the years is what is holding that stigma. You don't talk about your problems. Apita vadak nahi, apita prashna nahi. Right? Why? Because the neighbor is judging you, or so you think, right? And I can tell you very often, I'm sure Kaushali will echo this, no one really cares about what you're doing. They seem to care, but no one is really, really that interested in you. They might talk about you tomorrow, but they'll probably forget about you when the next cool hot topic comes up. So the problem with this social cultural context is that is why it's trending, right? Whatever is trending is dominant. So this is why we have to break the stigma by doing things like this. It starts with the individuals creating forums. Then we change the context, but it's going to take a lot of time. Change management takes time, not just in a corporate context, but also the societal context and the cultural context. So we start by assessing other like-minded people like ourselves, for example. And when you take organizations like Root Code, for example, you can be one of those catalysts for this movement. And I'd like to quote Coldplay, every teardrop is a waterfall. And we can all be teardrops, and we create that massive waterfall, which is breaking the stigma of mental health.
Great, Chanel. Thank you for that inputs. Mangala, what do you think?
Yes, I think Chanel and Kaushali, I think you brought up a really interesting insight on how we can work as individuals to fight with the stigma and also the fear. And also you brought up a really interesting aspect about the cultural element. Like, I fully agree. Like, if you take the countries in this part of the world, we have a different, the level of fear when it comes, especially if we go back to the real topic, like the mental wellness topic. So we know that people are a bit afraid to talk about their mental illness related issues because they have fear of judgment, and also they don't know whether it is right or wrong. They don't know whether it is a weakness or it is common. So I think if I touch about how we can change organization to create subcultures within cultures, I always believe, of course, you can exist in big cultures, which is preventing you to excel to your maximum, but you can of course create subcultures within those cultures to change those cultures, right? So organization, they have done that before many times, you can do that as well. From organization point of view, of course, if we as individual follow what Kaushali and Chanel do, is and said and advocated us, so then we need to have supportive system within the organization I always call it supportive system for the mental wellness, right? So for that, from the leadership in the organization, we need to keep telling, yes, mental wellness is important, but having mental wellness related issues doesn't mean it's a weakness, because we all have it. It's common, it's not special, right? So, and also it is temporary, and also we all are here to help you. So this is sort of a message that we need to establish in our organization culture. And then, those words are words, we all know, right? We can tell anything if they are just words. So then you can tell those things tomorrow in your organization, but it takes time for you to build the trust among your employees. You actually walk the talk, right? You don't have any scenarios that you penalize people, those who were in tough situations, because of that temporarily they had performance drop, but you didn't realize it. And those kind of things, the leadership and the organization should really work on, and gaining the trust from employees that they don't have any fear to talk about their mental health, wellness related issues, right? So this is something that we need to work on, and the organization should work on to gain that trust, because I don't think, like, if I have any mental wellness related issue, I should talk to everyone, but I should have at least someone in all levels in the organization that I should be able to talk to, because you need sometimes emotional support, right? So it can be your buddy employee who is not going to judge you, or even who can even cover you in your, the day-to-day work, because they know that you are going through a tough situation. And also you need to have people in the leadership teams, those who know how to coach you and how to mentor you if it is actually a work-related thing. And also then we have, specialized people in people and culture, those who are specialized in those. So it takes time for organization to build that culture. It is possible. I think this is exactly what we should do, to build this subculture within the culture, to create this supportive system for mental wellness. Yeah.
Great points, Mangala. And I think I personally at many times admired the support system that I have in Root Code. And even for me, if I'm saying, I'm pretty sure everybody else, at least most of the people would feel the same. So the support system is what keeps us alive, and support systems are built on trust. So whoever is building an organization, I think the suggestion from everybody, and for me too, is to build trust-based relationships in the organization, so that it becomes a safe haven for everybody to talk about it, so that eventually we can get rid of the stigma at some point, right? I want to remind the audience that towards the end of the session, we'll be taking questions from you. So anytime you can, type in your questions in the Q&A, and then the moderators would pick it and ask us towards 6:45. And we are looking forward. So just reminding you, if somebody has joined late, we have a psychotherapist, Kaushali, we have a clinical psychologist, Chanel, and then we also have a corporate veteran, Mangala, in. So shoot out your questions, okay? Now, I recently came across this HBR article, the Harvard Business Review article, which says the busier you are, the more you need quiet time. And that kind of made me think, because I have had that issue many times. So sometimes, even my friends and family kind of get worried about me when I, climb a mountain, go to Himalayas for 5 days, and go off the grid and then come back. People get very worried, buddy, are you okay? But then the whole essence is over the years, I have figured out, right? I figured out that helps me stay sane among the loud noise that I am in as a CEO, and the stress and the movement that comes with it. I have figured out my hack. Yeah, I was lost originally, but I've figured out my hack. Couple of things, talking to great people, having a drink with my best people whom I can openly talk about. Just go to mountains or somewhere that kind of makes you peaceful, and and of course spend some time in the morning just to reflection and all of those things. So by doing that, over the years, I've reduced my occurrences of burnout. What I mean by burnout is not the psychological technical term, which is pretty intense. What I mean by burnout is what we casually refer as burnout. Something like, hey, buddy, I've been working very hard for the last 3 weeks and I'm like about to burn out. I need a break, that kind of burnout. By practicing those things, for me, I have reduced the frequency of my burnouts, and I think I'm becoming more of a very self-aware, very calm and composed kind of person. To the most part, I'm saying most of the time, because of course I do have my situations where I take a step back and think. What I wanted to ask you is, that is about me. What I shared is what works for me and what I have figured out for me. But generally, from an expert point of view, or in your experience, how do you handle burnout when you are really stressed out? And then what is the right time to take a break? Why I say that is, I have tried a long time back taking a lot of breaks, but that made me miserable too. Because if you don't have a life, like a proper speed life running, as a person, it doesn't make me feel better. So when is the right time to take a break? Let me repeat the question. Right? How do you handle burnout as a person? And when do you think is the right time to take a break? Over to you, experts. Whoever want to go first.
Shall I go first, Kaushali and Shannon?
Please do.
Because
Please,
what now soon I will turn 50. So during this 50 years time, what I realized was, there is, if you wait for that right time, you might be too late, right? So what I realized was, actually there is no balanced days. I never had balanced day that, I wake up in the morning, have a walk with my dog, go, have a nice breakfast and go to work and then go to film and, have a drink. And you basically can't have balanced days. But if you look at the week, and the week is basically, if you take a week, it has many different kind of beautiful days, like, Sunday, Saturday, Monday, Friday, and all these different days. Actually, you can basically have a balanced weeks and balanced months. So that is what I'm actually following. So my hobby is running. Those who know, that is my hack. Alagan, you know that. And so basically I do, Friday morning, I basically take the comfortable run. I normally do take 10Ks, like Friday morning 10K comfortable run. Sunday I want to push a bit, because it is a stressful run, but end of the run I feel so happy. So that is one of my hacks. At the same time, pick a Friday, go out with your friends and enjoy. So basically, if you can focus on having balanced weeks and balanced months, so you don't have to wait for that right time, because when you get signs that you need to take a break, probably it is too late. Yeah, that is actually my hacks. At the same time, when I go, we all are going through ups and downs, right? So every time when when I'm down, I always used to think about the similar scenarios that I was in before, and I know that this too shall pass. So I used to keep telling myself, okay, this too shall pass. So those are the hacks basically I used. Yeah. Over to you, Chanel and Kaushali.
All right, so let me pitch into what Mankala said. How often do you guys when you're doing the applications and all, often do you run system upgrades? Right? Whenever there's an upgrade, you got to do it. You can't-
Ideally speaking, as often as possible, but practically speaking, yeah, we lag a bit. But yeah, an ideal upgrade, it depends on what you're upgrading. If you're upgrading the core libraries, then probably a month. But yeah, I get it.
But we do upgrade it. I keep my machines. I mean, we all use computers. We all use like different devices. And when that upgrade has to be done, it has to be done, right? So we all have syncing issues. I'm just trying to pitch in that, keeping the computing language. We all have syncing issues and we need to run an upgrade. That's our hack, right? So coming into that, we do have two different perspectives as far as I see. One is psychosocial support system, right? And this other segment is psychiatry, right? So psychiatry is the medicational intervention when you know that, okay, things are completely out of mind and out of control with external factors, right? But psychosocial support is you look around, you support people around you, the family around you, or maybe other creative segments around you. It could be writing, it could be journaling, it could be blogging, it could be, different voice articulations or drama, or it could be anything. So if your hack is like whatever keeps you better, you need to pick up at that point. And myself and Chanel or Mangal, anybody will not be able to tell you, okay, this is the best hack, just take this home and this will do wonders. And that is absolutely false. And that is why mostly the training certifications and, so-called personality development things are doing amazingly well, because there's never going to be a self-personalized, development for per person. Your self-developer is right? It's your own brain and it's your own thinking. And let me add another segment. Do a pattern recognition. Look at your pattern. Figure out where is my pattern breaking, right? And where is, okay, I'm waking up, I'm doing this, this is my day's pattern, but where is my thought pattern? So look at your thought pattern, recognize your thought pattern and say, okay, I'm always going like this. And then whenever there's an activity coming in like that, I feel this emotion. That's the best self-hack that we all can rely on in terms of techniques. But as a result of that, we might end up in different segments. Okay, one would want to do a morning walk. One would want to listen to a beautiful person talking in the television in the morning, or one would want to just go with a bodily relaxation. Doesn't really matter what it is. But when it comes to the whole approach you want to take, I always believe rather than looking at the end result, better to look at what's my system. Try to figure out, okay, what's my human system? What is my thinking error? And where do I feel better, right? And where do I feel fit in, right? So this is the internal dialogue I always go back to. And beautiful thing is in Sri Lanka, we do have a lot more opportunities coming up for this now. So if you are thinking of, okay, I need to talk to someone, things don't seem to be all right, don't run to the doctor, don't run to the psychiatrist. Always have a chat with your next door friend. Machang, I have something like this, right? And if not, reach out to you have a beautiful culture at Root Code, right? I'm sure everyone, there's at least one person you can reach out to. So rely on that. And if you really see that biologically there's a report, I'm sure Chanel will explain this beautifully. There is a report saying that there's a hormonal imbalances, you need to get on the pill, then consider that treatment. Until then, do not pick up, again, I'm going back to the very first answer I gave, do not pick up perception of the word. Dr. Google gives you an approach saying, okay, you have depression, you have clinical anxiety, you have clinical bipolar. I think I have it. We all have those symptoms, but the diagnosis is different when we have those thinking errors. So let's work on our own thinking errors. It takes only 5 minutes, because self-talk is very honest, no judgment. No wife watching you, no girlfriend watching you, no kid watching you, no boss watching you. It's just your own damn self watching you. So watch it and recognize it and address it. And simple application development model that we are running on humans as well. So that's the start to, that's a starting hack for you to break your burnout.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what Mangala and Kaushali said. I think for me, it's all about emotional intelligence. And I think now, there's a lot of talk about how relevant EQ is versus just IQ, right? Just having IQ is not going to help you in the modern world. You will need to recognize emotions now. You will need to be self-aware. You need to understand empathy and how to apply it. You need to know how to regulate, and what Kaushali was saying, identify, right? You need to identify triggers as well as your thought patterns. What is triggering for you in terms of your work that is leading to burnout? You got to ask the right questions. It's all about asking the right questions at the end of the day, right? Because we have two sides. We have the rational and the irrational, which is also funnily referred to as the emotional side. So very often we are irrational beings. That is what human beings are. We are irrational. We have a very rational mind, which has a capability of being rational, but we often are quite irrational in the way we behave. We know that objectively it's important to take care of ourselves, but most people do not. Most people don't eat healthy. Most people give in to their addictions. Most people don't say the right thing at the right time, even though and when they want to. So we are emotional, flawed beings, and there's nothing really that bad about that. See, even burnout is a symptom, right? Everything is a symptom when you really think about it. Depression is a symptom of a larger thing. Anxiety is a symptom, right? Low self-esteem is a symptom. Social media addiction is a symptom. It's a symptom of society, right? These are all symptoms that we are having right now. And the fact is, you cannot have a perfect world. And I don't think I want one, do you? Perfection seems really boring to me. Right? I think Mangala, yeah, totally. It's all about evolution, right? Evolution is basically the antithesis of perfectionism. That's what I heard a clinical psychologist say once. Because if you are perfect, you cannot evolve. Because the point of evolution is to correcting the problems and getting better. That's what COVID-19 is. Yes, unfortunately, people have succumbed to the disease and horrible, horrible repercussions have occurred. But the fact is, nature does not make excuses and apologies. It continues regardless of whether the human ego wants it to or not. So burnout is similar, right? Burnout is the exact same thing. It follows the same process. You are burning out because your body and your mind is telling you, enough. What are you doing to yourself? Right? The human mind always wants us to win. It wants you to win. It wants you to be like, what, wake up, put your core values first. Why are you listening to a toxic person just because for a paycheck? You don't need to do that. Find your purpose, take care of your family, walk your dog. Those are things that really make you happy. That's what burnout is. It's telling you that most of your effort is misplaced. Sorry to be harsh, but and I think it's important to take reference and say, okay, if something bad is going on emotionally for us, own up to it and just consider it as a way of listening. Listen to yourself when your body and your mind is telling you something's wrong. Mental health issues are just a symptom. So pay attention to the symptom. Do as Kaushali says, speak to your neighbor. You don't have to come to a shrink. You can just first speak to the person you trust the most, then move on to whatever help you may require. But get good at listening. Listen to your intuition, right? Listen and figure out your self-awareness. That's the first step in recovering to any of these burnout. And I personally love, taking care of my own wellness. I like to work out. Mangla said he loves running. I love running too. I actually love yoga, right? Because it's like the bridge between the mind and the body. You can exercise your mind while exercising your body and perfecting your breath, which I think is the perfect win-win for me. So find your vice, listen to music. Everybody has that thing that they can turn to, right? Music is powerful. Art is very powerful, as Kaushali will tell you, right? You have to express yourself. It's all about expression. So identify, express, and manage. That's the way to go.
Great points. I'm actually going to jump into one of the questions that we just received, and I think it's very relevant to Chanel. Since you were talking about, the interventions and pills and when to, think of it that way. So one person has asked, this is how the question goes. I know that there are some people that take medication to calm their minds, which has a loads of complications and side effects. For an example, they start taking them because either they get angry quickly or they can't concentrate. Are those drugs recommended, or what's your opinion on medically altering people's minds? Chanel, this is your fortress. Go ahead.
The $1 billion question. I always get asked this, right? So here's the thing. I don't think medications are completely invalid. I think they are relevant. But I think I mentioned this to you yesterday when we were having a little chat as well, Allegan. We were talking about this very subject. And what I said was, I do think it's possible to deal with mental health struggles, whatever they may be, with psychotherapy and drugs, right? But I also think it's possible to do it without drugs, depending on the severity of the clinical disorder and the degree of whatever issues that you're having. So for example, I always mention this, if you're a severe schizophrenic, right, where you're seeing hallucinations, visual and auditory hallucinations, right, you're hearing stuff too, right? How do you function without the help of some antipsychotic? It's very difficult. So you cannot demonize medication. Very often, as clinical psychologists and psychotherapists, we are supposed to be anti-medication, but I am not anti-medication. I think some people can really benefit from it. What I don't think they can benefit from is only taking drugs. I think they may perhaps need psychotherapy as well. Just giving the drug is not going to help. They need some social support systems. They might really benefit from CBT, art therapy, psychotherapy. Like, these are all great integrative models that you can use. So I definitely don't think you can have a model where you're only medicated. I really don't think that's wise. I think you should incorporate psychotherapy as well as meds, right? And usually psychiatrists, psychotherapists, and psychologists, we should be working together. I really hope that more people do that, right? It's not a competition, okay? I think Kaushali and I definitely have realized that it's very important to empower each other, right? Within this kind of, therapeutic realm, because it's therapeutic, right? It's not supposed to be toxic. So the only time you should be considering medication, if you really believe, and we have a clinical term for this, it's called the GAF score so I was trained in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Clinical Disorders, which is the American Bible for clinical disorders, right? And in that, it gives you a GAF score called the General Aggregate of Functioning. I know it sounds very intimidating, but it basically tries to tell you that if you meet this criteria, then if you're not functioning and if you're a low score, that means you need a lot of help. And help can be in the form of some drugs and definitely psychotherapy, right? So consider that. Medication is not, I think it should be your last resort usually, right? But depending on what context you're in, maybe you are 5 years into your diagnosis and you're really finding it difficult to just put on your clothes in the morning, right? Then yes, I would say drugs would be very, very helpful. It just depends on what stage you are in terms of the clinical disorder.
Great, Chanel. And when you told about CBT only, I remembered like long time back, I was telling you yesterday in our chat as well, that about 10 years back, I figured out what a CBT is, cognitive behavioral therapy. So technically what, from a layman point of view, because I'm not an expert in psychology, I know nothing, right? But how you can expose yourself into kind of similar situations until you train yourself to be better. Like if you are stressed out, accept it, be stressed and work on the root cause, right? And over the years, actually over the decade, it has really helped me. So a lot of a lot of improvements that I did on myself, the fears I worked on, my stress tolerance that I worked on, every single thing I kind of, do that self-talk to myself. And I think that might be a very relevant thing as well to people. Good. We are receiving some interesting questions, so I'm just going to bring in next question. I think it's very relevant to Mangala, I believe. And of course me. Somebody has asked, sometimes when I'm full with work, the upper management loads me with more work and pressures me with deadlines. How to say that I'm full politely? That's a very good point. How do I say no politely? Mangala?
I can answer. So I think most of the time, the reason when we talk about the upper management, and he's talking about the upper management, and probably even the direct manager can do the same. The one primary reason could be that they don't know exactly how much of load that you have, right? This is where that you need to have some sort of transparency about the workload that you have and how much of stress that you are going through. Because sometimes we might actually go into our own thinking, like, if you don't talk about it, no one knows it, right? So the best way to approach is to have some transparency between you and your team leader and your management about how much of workload that you are going through. Because sometimes since you especially mentioned about the top management, they probably might not know about exactly what sort of struggle that you are in at the moment, right? So the most polite way is actually be transparent about your workload and how you are actually coping up with that. And because we all know that end of the day, if you get stressed out, no one get the benefit out of it, right? So basically we all know, like, I don't think that any leader will take it as offensive if you talk about it more transparent manner. So that is my answer. Maybe Alagan, you can also fill in if you have different opinions.
No, I kind of echo the same sentiment, Mangala. I think creating sort of a transparency with the people you work with, your managers or your peers, about your capacity and what you can produce on a day or a week or a sprint, and then being okay with that, just talking about it, would set the expectation straight. And then when you are stuck, tell people that you are stuck. If you are full, just don't be afraid. I mean, you should be, nobody else is going to talk on behalf of you. It's you who is going through, so much of work. And if you are overworking, that's, you are the first person who should talk about it. And any sane leader, any smart leader would recognize that as a very valuable feedback, because like Mangala said, it's not going to be productive for anybody if somebody is overworking, because overworking can seemingly produce outputs in short term, but it can kill creativity and kill the sustainability in long term. So because of that, any smart leader would understand when you bring it up, and if people don't understand, then you're probably in the wrong team or the wrong place. So that's also something. It's harsh truth, but yeah, if people don't take, if your leaders don't care about you, then yeah, that's not probably the right place. And I have one interesting question. Does anybody want to take a go? How does alcohol affect mental health? It's a very, very interesting question. I don't know who wants to take it.
It's the greatest drug ever. I'm just kidding. I would say, see, here's the thing. Everything in moderation, right? Except for the fact that alcohol is technically classified as a toxin, right? Which means, It's toxic, right? But there are some arguments. And the funny thing is this, right? When you look at the clinical trials, you will find red wine a day increases, serotonin, reduces blood pressure, very good for cardiovascular health one day. The next day it will be something like red wine is really bad for your, mental health. It can disrupt serotonin levels in this clinical sample. So the problem with science is, right, and the best part of science is every hypothesis can be debunked. Right? That's the point of science, is that you can never prove anything really. You can only find evidence for it, depending on the context and the time. I mean, the thing is, as a species, we've had alcohol since we evolved. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched the documentary, How Beer Saved the World, because beer actually is the most, I mean, that's what they use to function to build the pyramids. And wine, we know, has been used in all contexts, in every monarchy and every, single government. Alcohol has always had a forerun in our history. But here's the thing, when it comes to any substance, and I don't think it's just alcohol, you need to make sure that your genetic component doesn't have a predisposition for addiction or any other kind of biological issues. Some people have weaker liver than others. Other people, now don't forget, alcoholic addiction is genetic. Very often it is transferred. So if your father was a drinker, it's likely that the offspring will be a drinker, right? So we need to understand that you need to know where you're at, self-awareness. I don't believe in demonizing anything. I'm someone who, believes in hedonism to a certain extent. I think you need to enjoy yourself. I think you need to, you have one life to live, right? So I believe as long as you have discipline, and it's same goes with junk food, same goes with Netflix, same goes with social media. Don't let it overpower and control your life. That's when you become dysfunctional. There's actual evidence to suggest that a little bit of alcohol can actually help boost mood. I'm sure we all can testify to that, right? But it can also cause a lot of problems. Domestic violence has a direct correlation with alcohol addiction in studies, right? People are more likely to get very violent when they're drunk, obviously, because your inhibitions are less when you drink alcohol. It gives you that liquid courage that we speak about, right? So here's the thing, everything is not too bad or too good. Human beings make it so, right? Because we are dysfunctional, right? So try and evaluate your relationship with alcohol. Is it a functional relationship or is it a dysfunctional relationship? That's the best way you can make the most of whatever it is. It's the same with any kind of drug, in my opinion. But you need to consider, and I know I have a very liberal view on this. There are people who will be like, no alcohol ever and no drugs whatsoever. But the fact is, they're finding tons of studies in the place where I did my master's, for example, in Portland, Oregon, that certain, and I saw a question on psychedelics, so this is why I'm bringing this up, that psychedelics actually have a very good response rate for severely depressed patients. Now, this is within a very liberal context, right? But that's what some studies are saying. So we need to keep an open mind when we're discussing substances of this sort, because what you should never do is demonize the person who's drinking, taking drugs, and ostracizing them from society to make them feel like they're the plague. That's the big issue. You're the problem if you're doing that. So just reevaluate your relationship with alcohol.
Lovely, Chanel. I think I had a bit of points to add, but you covered the 360 of alcohol, and then you walked a very nice line without recommending or demonizing, Lovely way. All right, we have more questions, but sadly we are running out of time and close to the end. Any final remarks from the panelists? Would you guys like to say any? Would you guys like to leave the audience with any thoughts at the end about mental health and how they can take care of themselves?
All right, so let me pitch in. So I normally have two things that I always share with everyone, right? First, live life. You're failing, you're feeling fear, you're feeling absolutely like so pathetic right now. Dude, you're having a feeling. Enjoy that you're having a feeling. It's very, very important. It may be positive, it may be negative. It's an emotion that is triggered because you're healthy. Right? And as Chanel said, fear response is working upon you, is your hormone system is perfectly working all right. But imagine if someone's kind of come to kill you or come to kind of give you a bad time, and you're like, okay, something's going on, I just don't get it. Then there's a problem. Because your hormone system, all of us human beings, we've kind of forgotten our formula. We are amazing human beings. I mean, our whole brain is adjusting every single minute. All the neurons are adjusting. Okay, how do I sit? How do I look? What do I want to change? What's my color? How do I want to just pitch into every single language, every single psycholinguistic, every single, psychedelic as she was telling, Chanel was talking about, everything is popping up in our mind. So accept it. The very first thing is acceptance. And then you have two sides of the brain. There's something that is analyzing and something that is allowing you to beautifully enjoy. If there's an ant, sit down and watch where is this ant fellow is going. If there's a leaf, sit down and watch, okay, how is this moving? Whereas we are trying to really figure out in an application, where is the pattern, how does it work? How does the wireframes are going to be presented? These are all based on the so-called flow of life, so-called flow of nature. And go cuckoo. The worst way of singing, do sing. The worst way of movement, do it. Because as Chanel said, absolutely all of us don't have time to check on someone else. We just have time to check on ourselves. So acceptance, creativity, and be consistent to yourself. Because whether we like it or not, we kind of wake up in the morning or we fall asleep. We do have a biological cycle as humans. And we kind of have taken all the other things which are non-biological and, try to change our system. This system change is not going to happen, guys. This system upgrade is just a replacement of maybe another robot coming in. It's just a replacement, but there is no upgrade in terms of biological evolution, right? Unless otherwise it will take maybe, I don't know, decades or years and years of it. But you have a beautiful system. And it doesn't really have to be managed only by quick pills. As Chanel said, yes, medication do work, but not alone. Just like a diet pill. You go to the doctor and say, I need to like this part down, that part down. That part itself cannot work together. So have your system all together. Connect with your dots. You have so many dots, one dot in one corner, other dot in the other corner. Connect your dots within. Self-talk, do your self-talk. Blame yourself, appraise yourself, love yourself, embrace yourself. Then that self-talk will come out. And sometimes all the system goes away. So what? But your biological system won't go away. That's your well-being. You're in good fitness. You're in good mindset. You can say, you know what? Let everything else go. I can have a gaga time. That's your well-being. And even when the tough times are coming in, you crack a joke about it, set up a platform and run on it. That's your well-being. So embrace yourself. That's my message.
Great, Kaushali. Thank you. And how about you, Chanel?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what Kaushali said. The only thing I would add is, I always mention this, just get better at listening, not just talking. Everything is trying to tell you something. The people you love, your body, your mind, your society, your context, your reality. Your reality is your own, though. Don't ever forget that. And the only way you're going to be able to be the architect of your own reality is by paying attention to it. What Kaushali was talking about, with that awareness, right? What Mangala was talking about, that support system that you need to pay attention though. If you're going to be blissfully ignorant, which is what unfortunately a lot of people are, and most people, they take drugs and other substances to distract themselves and escape from their reality, because their reality is pain. That's why we do bad things, because we're trying to escape from our pain. So listen to that amazing, beautiful thing that we've got going. As Kaushali said, we've got this, right? We have this system. This is all we're going to get anyway. So we might as well make the most of it. Instead of talking back at it, making it feel like it's less than something, maybe we just look at the opportunities that lie within it and make the most of it. Because that's all that really, really matters, right? Because nothing is permanent anyway. So, right, let's just make the most of it.
Great points. Mangala, any last remarks?
Yes, I can simply add few things. I echo everything what Kaushali and Chanel said, and also, like, I always believe there is no one way of living, and we are human and we are in a big spectrum. So you can be someone who is complacent, who's very happy with what you have and you don't want any more. You are happy, but you can be someone who is pushing your limits, and you are over ambitious, you are tough on you, and you want to get more than what you are, and that's one way of living. But whatever it is, you need to go through that acceptance. Like, if you are such a person who is pushing yourself, I have seen many people, you're not wrong, but then you have to accept you will fall many times than the others, but that's fine, right? So end of the day, be nice to yourself, be yourself, and we live once, right? So that is end of the day, mental well-being really matters. Yes.
Great. It was absolutely a privilege listening to all of you, and to the audience, just reminding you, we had in the session Chanel, a clinical psychologist, and Kaushali, a lecturer and a psychotherapist, and Mangala, an industry leader, and it has been a big privilege and fun listening to you and hearing your very open and useful thoughts. And thank you so much for taking your time to be here and then add this value to the audience. So thank you so much, and thank you to the audience for listening, and wish you all guys have a great night. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Good night.